Most people know that advanced civilization first begun around here in Mesopotamia due to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers that definitely don't look like that. But it's something like that. It's like, ooh, rivers. But what if instead civilization started around here in America? Well, that's what I'm going to be going over. This is a little experimental series or video series if like actually want to do it again and if anyone actually wants to see it. But basically it's inspired by a series called WISCO, which is what if civilization started over, although I think I said it wrong, Wixo. I think that's right. But yeah, I'm going to be seeing it what the world would be like if civilization started here. This is absolutely not realistic at all, and I'm just going to be making stuff up on the spot. But yeah, we'll see where we get. Now, I think that I've chosen the Great Lakes as a prime spot in America because, like, up here it's too cold. Like, there's very, like, I guess if people start on the coast, like, as Europe has the Mediterranean, and, like, this is not the Mediterranean, it's much smaller, but I feel like this is a prime spot if civilization did start here for actually to be. So, we're going to say civilization, appears. That's the wrong thing. Like, there we go. The first early forms of civilization represented by this red color, which isn't really, like, I want to say this isn't really a real, like, forms like democracy, because it's like the start of civilization, but there's clear, like, classes. You've got the kings, you've got nobles, you've got hierarchy going on over here. It's a very violent nature, and as time goes on, people, they begin to explore most of the Great Lakes, as fishing is like a vital food source that they can get from this, as the Great Lakes are pretty big. And as it goes on, the little red team civilization began expanding over all the Great Lakes, and life keeps thriving. Many people are getting born, and a lot of stuff is going on, really. There's no conflicts. Okay, just for everyone's sake, I've gone and updated the map to show what, like, people actually know. Like, what, like, this is the whole world to them. This could be it for all they know. They could be on an island. Obviously they're not, but people don't know. So as time goes on, I guess not really much happens. The civilization just expands. They start going further inland rather than sticking to the coast. But overall, life stays the same for a while because the civilization needs time to grow and expand. And eventually, the red civilization expands so much that they almost take over like the whole of the Great Lakes. Go around here, they start even like pushing into mainland America almost. We see the red team slowly push around here, linking up with each other, basically navigating almost the whole of the Great Lakes. Well, actually all the Great Lakes, really, going on over here, other than this segment over here. And they begin exploring further inland, finding new riches and materials that they can use to grow their population and thrive. Which at the moment, most people don't stay in one spot. This is kind of a nomadic group that is just showing the generalization of where people are. Like, most people just run around living off the land with no care, obviously, because they don't actually know anything. But yeah, slowly people discover more and more land, and then civilization begins to spread as settlements are placed almost everywhere. And the civilization begins looking expansionist. They're trying to map, as people begin to map out the world, wondering, where are they? How far are these lakes? There's a bunch of land this way. And the local government, which is normally situated around here, I'll give it a real location a bit later on when they actually settle down properly. They decide to send out a party. It's not that big of a party, but their goal is to try and map up here, find anything they can. And they slowly begin to explore a lot of land as the civilization begins expanding more. But eventually, as they expand for quite some time during the year, it eventually becomes winter. And due to the extreme cold of the Arctic, the people eventually die, which causes the Red Civilization to send out their own search party for the search party, which eventually builds up a lot of unrest and dispute between the civilization, as the people over here, towards where more people live, are focused on expanding and trying to get as much resources as they can, whereas people like this segment, a very popular segment due to it being on both, like, surrounded by Great Lakes basically, they want to settle down. They want to focus on making life better, because it's mainly the rich people and the upper class which have access to all the resources, and not all the people. An almost early form of communism, you could say. So eventually we're going to have a breakaway, as over here we see the formation of the blue team. Yes, a very original color scheme, as these guys just kind of separate off. You know, they don't take too much, but they've kind of formed their own thing, eventually trying to monopolize on this lake, going for a more of communist society, which is much different to over here, which is very much aristocratic. I can definitely speak. Over time, as the decades go on, people discover more and more land, and eventually we're going to get some new borders of these two civilizations. There we go. These are the new borders of the civilizations, with the blue team being much smaller, mainly sticking around this lake as they know it's a vital food source for their civilization to live. Whereas the red team here and here are beginning to, like, expand outwards almost, going more inland and, you know, starting to form proper locations and areas of population. But they still haven't gone this way though, and I wonder when that's going to happen. Maybe later on in this story. Let me colour this in. Eventually, after the civilizations expand even more, we see the first forms of, like, big cities, capitals, like focal points of civilization, which I'm about to put on the map. In terms of the red team, we have their capital being right here in a prime location, and their major cities being located here, right on the edge, and here, an area of prime expansion for the people trying to go this way. And in terms of the blue team, their capital is situated, hold on, right here. They don't really have any other big cities. Maybe one around here, but other than that, it's mainly the red team that is thriving right now, almost having, I think, around I'd say around double the population of the blue team. But that might change soon. Now, here's where things start to get a little bit spicy, because the capital over here have come up with yet another mission plan. This time, instead of sending more people north, which didn't end up well last time, they didn't actually explore that much, and yeah, people actually haven't gone up there, so that was kind of a waste of people. They're going to go this way, which, spoiler alert, there's something over here. Now, the civilization, they're going to come this way, they're going to send their people through here, and they're going to begin exploring. And eventually, what they'll come across is a coastline. You know, they'll come across whatever, is this Long Island? I don't know, New York maybe? But nonetheless, they'll discover some land, new land in fact, called the Atlantic Ocean. And this is pretty monumental, because as of right now, you know, this is their whole world. All they know is the Great Lakes. They rely on it for fishing, for everything. It's kind of like, it is literally the center of the world. But this new discovery of a new body of water which means new civilizations can thrive over here, which is a game changer. But actually, what ends up happening is the people that are sent over here break away from civilization, and they begin their own little settlement over here, hoping to control this land, and they actually don't end up telling anyone about this. It's not until much later that the red team goes out and sends their own search team, suspecting that these people have ended up the same fate as the ones up here. They realise that there's actually land here, and these people have just broken away from civilization to take it for themselves. As time goes on, we see a lot more land being discovered, and the green team expanding. We're setting up their capital, obviously on the really skinny island, which I'm pretty sure is Long Island. Probably should have searched up, but I'm going to call it Long Island. And, you know, if it's wrong, then you can correct me in the comments. But, yeah. We've got over here, we've got 3 civilizations being set up. Obviously, red still containing the most, and blue second, and green third. But all the sea civilizations are expanding, and soon they're going to get a lot bigger. Now we enter what I like to call the Age of Expansion, where we see these civilizations begin expanding a lot. First, it begins with the blue team, which aren't really expansionists, but, you know, to compete with the others, they end up going out, discovering new land up north, and really carving out, you know, kind of like an oval, really, like an area of their land. But they're not the only ones. We see the red team pushing up over here, finally going up here where, you know, they went ages ago, decades ago even, and actually discovering what's up here. And actually, it's not too bad. So they don't know what killed those people. They don't really, you know, but they're gonna thrive anyway. And this is where we first see a sort of meet up between the reds and the greens, as the civilizations carve out their own border for themselves, making a border like that. But we also see the red expanding over here, furthering their border with the blue, while also pushing deeper, making a more like refined border, discovering even more land. The red and blue aren't the only people expanding, because yeah, green's expanding, pushing into, I want to say Delaware, no idea, but eventually green starts making a lot of land for themselves, discovering even more of the coastline, and they wonder just how far up and down does the coastline go. Well, spoiler alert, they're going to find out. The green team begins sending it down scouts and armies to discover even further down the coastline, until they eventually have to return for supplies. But they end up discovering a good chunk of land up here. But the green team aren't the only ones trying to expand. We got the red team. They're aiming to go this way to try and find coastline. They're trying to find this amazing idealized sea that the greens have found, but they're trying to go above greens. So the reds begin their expansion, sending a pretty large group of scouts to go and explore land. Until eventually, after quite some time using most of the supplies, they eventually hit gold, you could say, and they end up finding coastline, discovering this little bay? I think that's what it's called. Until they eventually return backwards. Until they eventually return back, discovering a lot of land, which allows the red team to come in here and basically lead to the discovering of whatever this area is called, as it is known to the rest of the world. And it's all up for grabs between the red team and the green team as they race to whoever gets the most land. We see the red team be the first ones as they begin pushing their civilization towards the little bay. They're not the only ones. Green team begins pushing upwards, thriving off the coast, before eventually crossing this little channel over here and landing here. But while they're doing this, the red team manages to hit land, and they carve themselves all of this land, eventually forming a new border between the green and the red up here, which definitely won't lead to war later on, as the green push out, discovering these islands. whereas the red consolidate their border up here, allowing them to have a significant territory reaching the Atlantic Ocean. Much later on, we see the emergence of some big cities, especially in the Green Empire. We see a lot of people moving down here as they hope to explore further down once the Green government starts funding more exploration missions. And this kind of becomes a hub for the Green Empire. Well, we also see a city start to form here, as well as here, as people go over here for hope, for new opportunities. But back in the mainland, we still see the build-up of more cities. Most notably, the red here, relatively close to the blue, as well as the blue getting a huge city over here, which actually overtakes the city, becoming the second most populous city in the region. But the development of these two cities is quite important, because this little area, hold on a minute, let me pick colour. This area of the red team actually wants to join the blue team. You know, they agree with how the blue team acts, and the local leader of this town officially joins the blue team as the blue team takes over this whole province, which obviously, if you're the red team, you're not gonna like that. You just had one of your new biggest prosperous cities taken. So you know what we're getting? We're getting the First War, and you can even call it a world war, because it's got 2/3 of the world if you think about it. Now, who's going to start this war? Well, it's going to be the red team. The red team are going to push with their very minuscule army. I mean, armies are barely developing, but we do have sophisticated military for both these countries, which will make this war a lot more official. And now, as the red team storm through this land, they've been given orders to pillage, as the red team begin taking all the small villages and plundering them and stealing all their resources, until they eventually near the rebellious city. But the blue team, they're not going out without a fight, and they send their own army, which defeats the red army around here, and even allowing the blue team to push in to some of red's territory. But not before red comes back, removing their army from blue land to help protect, as they manage to push the blue team back into their own land. Now, as the red team begin to wreak havoc throughout the blue team, it may look like they're winning. It may look like they have an advantage, but the blue team doesn't actually has their soldiers somewhere else. They've got some like defenses here to ward off the red army, but they've got a hitting force of themselves. Over here, the leaders of the blue team send their own division to invade up north, and due to there being no defense here, they absolutely steamroll through the red nation, managing to even capture one of the red's popular cities, which not only, you know, is a defeat to the reds, it also makes the people angry, especially in regions over here. As over here, if you look, this is extremely far away from the capital. Like, it's literally on the other side of the world. So we've got some upprest building up here, as it looks like there could be a revolt coming from this city, but more on that later. But what this does do is alert the reds, which remove some of their forces from here, allowing the blues to basically push them back to the border, even pushing in to some extent over here, which means that the red, as much as they try and push back, especially up here, they cannot stop the blue from taking the city, and the blue eventually push even further, making the first official naval landing developing the most advanced naval technology, which at the moment is very little. Like, they're not going to have big ships. But none the matter, this allows the Blues to use the first ever tactics called encirclement, as the Blue forces begin to surround the Red forces, forcing them to be pushed back here, where they eventually backed into a corner that they are absolutely obliterated, which is a big blow to the Red, as that's like half their army. And this allows the Blues to steamroll through Red territory, which eventually forces the Red to sign a peace treaty, capitulating, as losing their capital would be detrimental to the country. Now, obviously, the Blues, they just want independence, but they're not going to let the Red slide. They're going to be taking some land. Obviously, not everything, because, they haven't taken most of the country, and if they were trying to take a lot of the country, the Reds would fight back. But they're going to take a portionable size. We see the Blue take most of their occupied lands, even getting a bit more over here and slightly more over here, while the Reds managed to get this chunk of land back. But that is not the only thing that happens. Okay? We see over here, there's been a lot of unrest here. And this city planned their rebellion as they rebel from the big nation, forming their own nation, kind of based around here. This new purple country, which, by the way, I have no idea why this has gone purple. But anyway, we've got a brand new country, which the Red aren't really happy about. But they've got no military. A bunch of their people were slaughtered. And if they were to start another war, the government would become even more unpopular than it is. But yeah, that is the end of the first chapter of, what if civilization started in America. And so far, let's go through all the countries. We have the original country, the Reds. They're expansionist, but now that's been kind of halted because, they got over here, lost that to the green. They got up here, lost it to the purple. They lost a bunch of land to the blue. They're in ruins. They need to focus on fixing their economy and making their people happy. But what they do have is most of the population. This city is astronomically large. It probably holds like 20% of the world's population. And these two cities are quite big, although the loss of this city is quite detrimental. Moving on to the Blue Nation. It's a form of like communist aristocracy. You get what I'm trying to say. Compared to the other countries, this one is the country that lets the people decide the most, which is what caused, this little segment of the Reds to want to join them in the first place, because they get treated better. And although the Blues aren't as expansionist, they've done quite well for them. They've managed to use their superior war tactics and technology to inflict a devastating defeat on the Reds, which had greater impacts. If we go over to the Green Country, which actually might be one of the biggest countries there is. It's a very big country, and cities across the coastline are starting to develop. Right now there's only 3 big cities, but I'm sure by the start of next chapter, almost, there would definitely be a lot more. But this is turning into be a very powerful nation, as they have so much fishing ground. There's loads of fish here. There's lots of resources, and it's a very fertile land over here. They can do a lot of farming on, which might make them a great power later on. And our newest member and our weakest country, we've got this little civilization over here. Rebelled from the Reds very recently. They don't really have a strong form of government. Right now, it's basically kind of split. Hold on, let me get black. And let me try it's basically split into different areas. It's a bunch of different tribes that are united under one identity kind of, but there's not really one leader. But maybe we'll see what happens in the next chapter. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this chapter. So if you actually watched to the end, then comment, like, and subscribe. But yeah, see you in the next one if I decide to make one, and I probably will.